Hello everybody, today we're going to learn the daily Tanya for Kav Daled Chodesh Addar Beis Tafshin Pei Daled. So yesterday and the day before we talked about this sort of tension between the equality of Hashem's revelation of the world in the sense that it is all done through Klipas Noiga, it is all done through God's basic will to allow the world to exist, and not only to allow, to grant the world its existence anew. But there is a tension between that and between the fact that Hashem's revelation in the world is hierarchical. In other words, Hashem's presence, Hashem's revelation, let's say, within, the existence of a rock is not the same as his revelation in the existence of a human being or in the existence of the Torah. So today we're going to talk about that tension a little bit more. כי בגוף הגשמי והדומה ממש כאבנים ועפר, ההארה היא בבחינת צמצום גדול אשר אין כמוהו, והחיות שבו מועטת כל כך עד שאין בו אפילו כוח הצומח. So we're saying that in the body and in the sort of physical bodies that are just that are inanimate, the dead human body, let's say, which is like a stone, right? It's inanimate like a stone. The life in it and the sort of the revelation of Hashem's own life in it is so very little that it doesn't even have the koyach hatzaymech, which is koyach hatzaymech is the sort of growing or the botanical force, right? The life force of the plant, right? I actually just heard that in Greek it's called a fue, right? The sort of the power of nature, you can call it. It doesn't even have that. ובצומח, ההארה אינה בצמצום גדול כל כך. And in the tzomech, in the plant, there is still more revelation of God's presence. בדרך כלל, and in general, נחלקות לארבעה מדרגות. The sort of levels of the expression of life are split into four levels. Domem, which is inanimate. Tzomech, which is vegetable, chai, which is animal, ve'medaber, which is the speaking being, which is the human capacity for, you could say, reason or even his connection to God. And these four are keneged daled otiyot shem havaya baruch hu. And these four categories are analogous, or they sort of come from the four letters of Hashem's name. The Yud, referring to the Medaber, the speaking being, Hey to the animal, Vav to the vegetable, and the second Hey to the inanimate. Shemimeno mushpaim, and from these four letters comes the life force for each category, respectively. וכמו שאין ערך ודמיון ההארה והמשכת החיות המלובש בחי ובמדבר. לא, sorry, excuse me, I misread that. וכמו שאין ערך ודמיון ההארה והמשכת החיות שבדומם וצומח להארה והמשכת החיות המלובש בחי ומדבר, אף שבכולן אור אחד שווה בבחינת הסתר פנים ומלובש בלבוש אחד, בכולן שהוא לבוש נוגה, כך אין ערך ודמיון וכולי. We're going to get to that in a minute. So what he's saying here is that just like there's no comparison, but you can't compare the level of life that exists in the inanimate and the plant world to the level of life that exists in the animal and the speaking being, the human world. These things are not comparable. He's saying this is true, even though, again, there is a uniformity, there is a sort of underlying um, there's an underlying sort of singularity to the life force that is given to all of these categories as they are given through klipas naga. They're given through these sort of mixed, good and evil area of existence. Okay, so like we said, even though there's this underlying uniformity, just like one cannot compare the living to the inanimate, so one cannot compare, we'll see in a minute, אין ערך ודמיון כלל בין הערה והמשכת אור אינסוף ברוך הוא. There's no, there cannot be compared to God's will, which is שהוא פנימיות רצונו יתברך, בלי הסתר פנים ולבוש כלל, המאירה ומלובשת במצוות מעשיות ממש. Right? So we cannot compare the life force, the expression of God's will and God's design, we cannot, which is evident in which sort of exists within the very action of the mitzvahs, even without intent. Right? And so too the commandments, the mitzvahs that are dependent on being spoken out. Uvitui sfatayim bli kavana, shu nechshav kema'aseh mamash, right? Or just a mere expression, mere lip service, one could say, which is done without intent, which is just like a mere action, right? There's no comparison between the revelation of God's will in that to the revelation of God's will in an action with intent. Kanal לגבי ההערה והמשכת אור אינסוף ברוך הוא המאירה ומלובשת בכוונת המצוות מעשיות שהאדם מתכוון בעשייתן כדי לדבקה בו יתברך על ידי קיום רצונו. So there is no comparison between an empty action, even though it is God's will, even though you are doing God's will, it cannot be compared to when it is done with intent, and with the intent to unite with God through the doing of His will. Shiur r'tzono echad, because as He and His will are one, and this is a whole philosophical topic that we are not going to go into right now. I might put up another video where I try to go into this in a little bit more depth and a little bit more detail, but this is not the place. Let's just now say that God and His will are completely united to each other, that when you unite with God's will, you unite with God. Those two things are the same in that sense. וכן בכוונת התפילה וקריאת שמע וברכותיה ושאר ברכות שבכוונתו בהן מדבק מחשבתו ושכלו בו יתברך. Right? And the same, he says, just like the intent, just like doing mitzvahs with intent is higher here, he says the same is true about kriyat shema and prayer and brachas and blessing with intent. Which is when you do these things, you connect your mind to God. And that is where we're going to end today. And we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. See you later.